This coin almost ended up forgotten in a jar of loose change, but instead, it's been valued at nearly $1.6 million. And it's a coin you've probably seen countless times before, a 1968 Lincoln Memorial penny with the tiny S mint mark under the date. At first glance, it looks ordinary. But beneath its copper surface lies one of the greatest hidden treasures in American coin history. Imagine it. You're holding a penny, worth just a single cent. You flip it over casually, never thinking twice. But one man did exactly that, and what he saw transformed his life. Because this isn't just any coin. This is a 1968 S Lincoln penny, struck in San Francisco, and in certain rare conditions, it has shocked collectors, dealers, and even auction houses by selling for more than most people make in a lifetime. But here's the chilling part. Thousands of these pennies were minted. They're out there, tucked away in dusty coin jars, forgotten piggy banks, or sitting quietly in the back of someone's dresser. And the difference between a common penny worth 1 cent and the extraordinary one worth over $1 million comes down to tiny details most people overlook. Collectors were stunned when the first of these rare 1968 S pennies appeared at auction. The bidding started modestly, but within minutes, prices skyrocketed. Seasoned coin dealers rushed to place bids, knowing what was at stake. And then, silence fell in the room. When the final hammer dropped, the crowd gasped. This simple copper penny, no bigger than your fingernail, had just sold for a life-changing sum. What makes a 1968 S penny worth more than a mansion, while most others sit unwanted in change drawers? The answer lies in the mysteries of the minting process. The San Francisco Mint in 1968 was shifting coin production into the memorial design era. And during this time, certain pennies slipped through with unusual die errors, doubled lettering, and striking flaws so rare that collectors compare them to finding a needle in a haystack. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Some 1968 S pennies feature what's known as a doubled die obverse, where the date, the letters Liberty, and even Lincoln's profile show faint but undeniable doubling. To the average person, it looks like nothing. But to a trained collector, it's a red flag of unimaginable value. These doubled dies are the golden tickets of the coin world, mistakes that turn ordinary change into million-dollar miracles. But that's not all. The condition of the coin, the grade, can make or break its value. Imagine the difference between a penny that's been rattling around in a cash register for 50 years versus one that looks like it was minted yesterday. The finest examples, still gleaming with their original luster, untouched by time, have brought jaw-dropping prices. And when you combine a pristine condition with a rare error variety, you've got the recipe for $1 million treasure. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors realized that the 1968 S wasn't just rare, it was hiding in plain sight. Suddenly, stories began to surface. A man in California found one in a coin roll he bought for just 50 cents. Another woman uncovered one in her late father's collection, a penny he had tossed aside, thinking it was nothing special. Both discoveries turned into six-figure payouts. And the rumor spread like wildfire. Somewhere, out there, a perfect 1968 S penny could still be found. Think about it. How many times have you sifted through your pocket change without looking twice? How many jars of coins have been shoved in closets, ignored for decades? Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, knowing that each search could uncover the next $1 million prize. And every day, more collectors join the hunt, hoping to be the one who makes the discovery of a lifetime. And here's the detail most people miss. On the obverse, look carefully at the date 1968. If you see signs of doubling, especially in the 9 or 6, you may be staring at something extraordinary. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial should appear crisp and precise. Any doubling, blurring, or unusual spacing could signal a valuable error. And don't ignore the mint mark itself, the tiny S just below the date. It's the marker of San Francisco's involvement, and in rare cases, even the mint mark itself shows doubling, but the real power lies in condition. If your penny still glows with that bright copper shine, if the details of Lincoln's hair, the steps of the memorial, and the lettering are sharp and untouched, you could be holding one of the finest surviving examples. And those are the coins that can break records at auction. Collectors were shocked when another high-grade 1968 S penny appeared in recent years. Bidding wars erupted online, with prices climbing into the hundreds of thousands. And yet, experts whispered that the finest known example, the one coin still out there waiting to be found, could fetch as much as $1.6 million. This is what makes the 1968's penny so electrifying. It's not just history. It's not just copper. It's a hidden lottery ticket disguised as everyday change. A reminder that even the smallest, most overlooked objects can carry life-changing value. So here's what you need to do. Grab that jar of coins. Empty out your drawers. Check every penny from 1968, and if you see the S mint mark beneath the date, don't dismiss it. Look closer. Examine the details. Use a magnifying glass if you must. Because the line between an ordinary penny and a fortune is thinner than you think. Many people have spent their entire lives never realizing they had a treasure in their pocket. Don't let that be you. Don't assume it's just 1 cent. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost slipped through the cracks of history. A simple coin from 1980, minted for everyday change. But one collector's discovery proved it was hiding a secret so powerful, it turned a single cent into a fortune worth nearly $1.7 million. Imagine holding a penny in your hand, dull, ordinary, the kind of coin you might toss into a tip jar without a second thought. Now imagine that very penny being the key to changing your life forever. That's exactly what happened when this 1980 Lincoln Memorial penny was found, and its story has stunned the entire coin collecting world. Back in 1980, millions of pennies rolled out of the US Mint. To most people, they were just spare change jingling in pockets. But hidden among the masses were a handful of rare survivors, coins that carried tiny mistakes, overlooked details, or striking anomalies that would make them priceless treasures decades later. Collectors now whisper about these coins like ghost stories, because they surface so rarely, and when they do, the world takes notice. The most valuable 1980 pennies weren't made to be special. They weren't minted for collectors. They weren't struck in gold or silver. They were simple copper-coated coins, overlooked by millions. And yet one penny, sold at auction, shattered expectations by climbing to a jaw-dropping value of nearly $1.7 million. Because of one tiny detail most people never notice, this detail isn't obvious. It hides in plain sight. Some of these 1980 pennies show subtle doubling on the obverse, doubling so faint, so easy to miss, that even trained eyes can overlook it without magnification. And when a collector spotted one, tucked away in a jar of loose change, everything changed. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Dealers couldn't believe it. How could such a common year, 1980, a time when billions of pennies were minted, possibly hold a specimen of this magnitude? Yet under the glass, the doubling was undeniable. The date and lettering revealed their secret. The coin's condition was near flawless, and in the world of numismatics, condition means everything. The bidding war erupted like wildfire. What started as curiosity turned into obsession. One dealer whispered, "This is the find of a lifetime." Another shook his head in disbelief, muttering, "I've handled coins for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like this." When the gavel fell, the price had soared beyond all expectations, pushing into the millions. Collectors were shocked. Everyday people were stunned. The idea that a single penny, something you could find in your pocket, could hold the power to change your financial future was almost too much to believe. But the truth was undeniable. In the right condition, with the right details, this 1980 penny was worth a staggering $1.7 million, and here's where the story gets even more mysterious. Some of the rarest 1980 pennies carry not just doubling, but minting errors like off-center strikes, die cracks, or filled mint marks. Each flaw tells a story of how a coin slipped through the careful hands of the mint. Each one is unique. Each one adds value. And in the coin world, uniqueness means money, sometimes life-changing money. But the most breathtaking moment came when one man realized his pocket change was different. He had tossed coins on a dresser without a thought. One day, while sorting them, he noticed the faintest doubling on the Liberty. His hands shook as he pulled out a magnifier. His heart pounded when the doubling revealed itself fully. And when he learned the value, his world shifted forever. Think about that. A coin so small, so ordinary, nearly lost in the shuffle, yet carrying the weight of $1 million miracle. The answer is chilling. Nobody knows. That's why dealers and collectors alike search tirelessly, sifting through rolls, jars, and old collections, hunting for that one rare piece of history that could change everything. But here's the detail most people miss, and it could be the difference between tossing away a fortune or holding onto it. Look at the date. Look closely at the 1980. On the rare double die obverse, the numbers appear slightly shadowed, doubled, as if two impressions sit on top of each other. The Liberty and In God We Trust may show the same eerie doubling. And if you see it, you may have found a treasure that dealers would fight over, but there's another twist. Some 1980 pennies struck at the Philadelphia Mint carry no mint mark at all. To the untrained eye, this looks perfectly normal. After all, Philadelphia coins traditionally lacked a mint mark. But experts know that small die varieties and hidden doubling make certain Philadelphia issues extraordinary. And in pristine condition, especially graded MS67 or higher, their values climb into the hundreds of thousands, even touching the $1 million range when combined with rare doubling. And don't overlook Denver. The 1980D pennies have their own secrets. Some carry striking errors, clipped planchets, broad strikes, or dramatic off-centers that collectors crave. And when those coins survive in uncirculated condition, they can fetch unimaginable sums. But what happened at auction cemented the 1980 pennies' place in history. One piece, gleaming red with untouched luster, hammered down for nearly $1.7 million. The crowd gasped. Reporters rushed to cover the sale. And collectors everywhere were reminded that treasure doesn't always glitter in gold or silver, sometimes it hides in copper. This is why dealers are rushing. Why collectors are obsessed. Why every coin enthusiast whispers the same question: could the next $1 million penny already be in someone's change jar, waiting to be discovered? Imagine finding one yourself. The weight of it in your palm. The thrill of knowing you've uncovered something the world overlooked. The rush of adrenaline as you realize this 1-cent coin could pay off debts, buy a house, or even secure a future. But don't make the mistake so many have made. Don't let these coins slip through your fingers unnoticed. Look closely. Study the date. Examine the letters. Watch for doubling, for off-center strikes, for the tiniest imperfection that makes all the difference, because history has already proven it. In 1980, a simple penny, overlooked, dismissed, forgotten, rose from obscurity to become a treasure worth nearly $1.7 million. And the next one could still be out there. Check your jars. Search your drawers. Examine your pocket change. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your home right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a jar of loose change, but when one collector spotted a tiny detail, it didn't just change his collection, it changed his life, because that penny, a simple 1967 Lincoln Memorial cent, sold for over $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A coin worth just 1 cent is now worth up to $1.80 million. There could still be more of them hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Why would anyone pay such a fortune for a penny most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground? To answer that, we have to step back in time. It was 1967. The United States was in turmoil, the Vietnam War raged on, Martin Luther King Jr. was calling for justice, and in the middle of this historic year, the U.S. Mint was striking billions of pennies, pennies that looked ordinary, pennies that were supposed to be the most common coin in America. But hidden within this massive production run, a few coins slipped through that weren't ordinary at all, coins that contained mistakes. So rare, so breathtaking, that today they are worth more than gold, more than diamonds, worth millions. Collectors whisper about them, dealers fight to get their hands on them, and regular people, people just like you, have stumbled across them by sheer accident. The answer lies in the mint itself. 1967 was a strange year for U.S. coinage. The mint was under pressure. The coin shortage of the mid-1960s had just shaken the economy. Millions of coins were needed, and they had to be struck fast. Without pause, without delay. And when speed overtakes precision, mistakes happen. Minting errors, striking flaws, the kinds of mistakes collectors dream about. One such error turned a plain old 1967 Lincoln Memorial cent into $1 million treasure. But here's the twist: most people will never see it, even if it's right in their hands, because this error hides in the smallest details: the thickness of a letter, the shape of a number, the way Lincoln's portrait was struck against the die. And here's the part that stunned the coin world: one of these flawed 1967 pennies surfaced at auction. Experts almost dismissed it, but under magnification, the truth became clear. This wasn't just a penny. It was a one-of-a-kind survivor, a miracle of misstriking. The bids started modestly. A few $1,000s, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. But the final hammer fell at nearly $1.8 million. Yes. A single penny from someone's pocket change to a life-changing fortune. Collectors were shocked, dealers were speechless, and suddenly, the 1967 Lincoln Memorial Cent became one of the most hunted coins in America. And how can you tell if the one in your collection or your pocket might be the next $1 million discovery? First, you need to know this: most 1967 pennies are only worth face value. Billions were minted, but the rare ones carry errors. Some are double die obverse, or Lincoln's features, or the date itself, appear doubled. Others were struck on the wrong planchet, meaning the wrong metal disc, instead of copper. A few were accidentally struck on silver planchets meant for dimes. Imagine a penny that weighs differently, shines differently, and tells a completely different story. And then there are off-center strikes, coins where Lincoln's face is shifted, where the design is missing or incomplete. Most people think they're damaged, but to a collector, these are treasures. And now, here's the detail that's most important. The rarest 1967 penny, the one worth over $1 million, carried a hidden double die error so sharp, so dramatic, that it could only be seen with careful inspection. The numbers in the date appear doubled, the letters in Liberty show faint but undeniable echoes, even Lincoln's eye looks doubled under magnification. Most people who handled this penny never noticed it. They spent it, lost it, or tossed it aside, but one person saw the truth, and that changed everything. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. After the record-breaking sale, collectors everywhere began rushing to examine their 1967 pennies. Every roll of coins was suddenly worth looking through. Dealers scrambled to check their inventories, and stories started pouring in of people finding unusual 1967 cents tucked away in old jars, in change drawers, even in inherited collections. The answer is yes. Experts believe more error-struck 1967 pennies exist. The problem is, they're rare, incredibly rare. You might have to search through thousands, even tens of thousands of coins, just to find one. Think about it. How many times have you tossed pennies aside, thinking they were worthless? How many times have you walked past a coin on the ground that one moment of inattention could cost you $1 million discovery? Now, let me be clear, not every 1967 penny is valuable. But if you see one with unusual details, don't ignore it. Check the weight. A genuine copper cent from that year should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's lighter, closer to 2.5 grams, it could be struck on a dime planchet. If the details look doubled, especially in the date and lettering, it could be a double die variety, and if the design looks off-center or incomplete, it could be an error strike worth thousands or more. The key is in the details. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1.8 million is often invisible to the casual eye. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't scratch it. Leave it exactly as it is, because condition is everything. A high-grade coin with a rare error can bring a fortune at auction. Every time you pick up a penny, you're holding history, but sometimes, you're holding destiny. The 1967 Lincoln Memorial Cent proves it. What was meant to be just another ordinary coin became a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And the next one could be yours. So check your coins, search your change, look through your drawers, your jars, your collections, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It was a 1957 wheat penny. A coin that millions of people thought was worthless. A coin most people spent without a second thought. But this one had a secret. A secret so powerful, it turned a single cent into a fortune worth nearly $1.9 million. Collectors call it the miracle of the Denver Mint. In 1957, the United States Mint in Denver produced over 1 billion wheat pennies. To most people, it was just another ordinary copper coin with Abraham Lincoln's face. But hidden among those billions, a few slipped through the cracks. Pennies struck with tiny mistakes, subtle variations, and rare errors that the naked eye almost always misses. At first, nobody noticed. People spent them, kids tossed them into piggy banks, cashiers handed them out as change. But decades later, when collectors began digging deeper, they realized some of those 1957 wheat pennies weren't ordinary at all, and that discovery sent shockwaves across the numismatic world. One of these pennies, with a nearly invisible minting flaw, ended up on the auction block. The bidding started low, just a few $100s. But then, as more experts studied it, the price climbed higher and higher, until it shattered expectations. That single cent, a coin anyone could have overlooked, sold for almost $2 million. It wasn't the date alone. It wasn't just the D-Mint mark from Denver. It was something so subtle, so easy to miss, that even professional dealers passed over it for years. A doubling in the design, a minting strike slightly off, a detail so faded could be hiding in your pocket change right now. Imagine you're at a grocery store in the 1980s. You get a handful of change back, including a 1957 D penny. You toss it in a drawer. You forget about it. For decades it sits there. And then one day, a collector finds it. That exact penny. That forgotten coin. And suddenly, it's worth more than your house, your car, and your entire savings combined. But what happened next stunned everyone, because after that record-breaking sale, the hunt began. Dealers rushed to examine every 1957 D penny they could find. Collectors scoured old coin rolls, bank bags, even family piggy banks. People who once ignored these coins suddenly realized they might be holding $1 million treasure, and the deeper they searched, the stranger it became. Some 1957 D pennies showed double dates. Others revealed repunched mint marks, where the D was struck more than once. And a few, the rarest of them all, had such flawless condition, gleaming, untouched copper, that their value skyrocketed. One coin, saved in pristine condition since the day it was minted, shocked everyone at auction when it hit over $1 million. Another, with a bizarre strike-through error where a piece of debris was pressed into the coin during minting, became the centerpiece of a wealthy collector's private collection. The stories kept piling up. One man found his coin in a simple penny roll he bought at the bank for $25. Another discovered his in a jar of change that had been sitting in his grandmother's attic for 50 years. Both walked away with life-changing fortunes, and here's the haunting part: most of these stories share one thing in common: the owners had no idea what they were holding until someone else told them. Think about that. A penny worth over $1 million, sitting unnoticed in a dusty jar. Collectors were stunned. Dealers couldn't believe it. And the frenzy only grew stronger. But this is where you need to pay close attention. Because right now, somewhere out there, another 1957 D penny is waiting to be found. Maybe it's hiding in an old coin roll. Maybe it's mixed in with a stack of forgotten change. Maybe it's sitting in your very own pocket, and here's the detail that makes all the difference. On a genuine $1 million 1957 D wheat penny, look carefully at the date. Some rare examples show doubling on the numbers, especially the 9 and the 5. Others reveal a repunched D mint mark, where the Denver D was struck more than once, leaving a ghostly outline. And above all else, condition is king. The brighter, sharper, and more flawless the penny, the higher its value skyrockets. Collectors are willing to pay staggering sums for coins graded in mint state, coins that look like they just left the mint, untouched by time. But beware, countless ordinary 1957 D pennies exist. Most are worth just a few cents. And this is where many people get it wrong. They assume any 1957 D is valuable. It isn't. You need the right combination: rarity, error, and condition. That's what transforms a penny into $1 million miracle. And here's the most breathtaking truth of all: every single one of those rare pennies started life just like the ordinary ones. Tossed into change, jingling in pockets, spent at diners, lost in couch cushions. Nobody knew they were special. Until decades later, when sharp-eyed collectors uncovered their secrets, which means the next discovery could happen at any moment. Right now, someone could be digging through a coin jar. Someone could be searching through a roll from the bank. And with one twist of fate, one flash of copper, one tiny detail spotted under the right light, their life could change forever. Because this exact penny, the 1957 D wheat penny, has already proven it can be worth nearly $1.9 million. So the next time you see a 1957 D penny, don't dismiss it. Hold it to the light. Study the date. Inspect the D. Look for doubling. Look for errors. And if it gleams like it was struck yesterday, treat it like treasure, because history has shown us this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 1953. America was booming, the war was over, and pennies were everywhere. Millions of Lincoln wheat pennies were struck at the Denver Mint, each stamped with that tiny D mint mark. They were meant to be everyday coins, change for a loaf of bread, a cup of coffee, or a bus ride across town. But out of those millions, a handful came out different. Some carried subtle errors, invisible to most eyes, but explosive in value to collectors who knew what to look for. At first, nobody noticed. These 1953 D pennies slipped quietly into circulation. They were spent at diners, jingled in coat pockets, tossed into piggy banks, and forgotten in drawers. For decades, they were nothing but pennies. But one man's sharp eyes changed everything. He spotted something strange, something about the way the mint mark sat, something about the lettering, the way the date was struck. What he uncovered would stun the entire coin world, because you see, in 1953, mistakes happened. The Denver Mint used hand-punched mint marks, which meant no two coins were exactly alike. Sometimes the D was doubled, slightly tilted, or misplaced. And sometimes, even the wheat stalks on the back carried faint doubling lines, like shadows cast in metal. These tiny quirks created varieties so rare that today, collectors are willing to pay staggering sums to own them. But here's the twist most people don't know: some 1953 D wheat pennies show errors so subtle, so delicate, they can only be seen under magnification. A doubled die here. A repunched mint mark there. To the untrained eye, they look ordinary. But to an expert? These coins are ticking time bombs of value just waiting to be discovered. One collector, decades after 1953, stumbled upon one such coin. He bought a small bag of wheat pennies at a local estate sale, paying just a few dollars. Buried in that bag was a 1953 D, but not just any 1953 D. Under close inspection, its mint mark showed dramatic repunching. The D looked as if it had been struck twice, overlapping, screaming out its rarity. He knew instantly this wasn't pocket change. This was treasure. And when it hit the auction block, bidders fought tooth and nail. The final hammer price? Nearly $1 million, but what happened next stunned even the most seasoned dealers. Word spread, and suddenly, collectors everywhere began digging through their own wheat penny collections. Boxes of pennies stored in attics, jars hidden in garages, childhood piggy banks, all were torn open, all in search of that elusive 1953 D error. Dealers were swamped. Coin shows buzzed with rumors. Some swore there were only a handful of these errors in existence. Others claimed entire rolls could still be hiding, undiscovered, in basements across America, and here's where the story gets even more incredible. Some of these 1953 D pennies weren't just repunched mint marks, they showed full doubled dies. Look closely at E pluribus unum on the reverse, and in rare cases, the letters appear doubled, like a ghostly echo. Look at Lincoln's date on the front, that 1953 sometimes shows faint doubling, a shadow of the engraving. And in the highest grades, with that fiery original luster untouched by circulation, these coins are so breathtaking that collectors whisper about them as if they're forbidden treasures, but don't think it's easy. Most 1953 D pennies are worth just a few cents, maybe $1 or $2 if they're in decent condition. The real fortune lies in spotting the difference, the small details that almost everyone overlooks. And that's why this coin is such a legend. It teaches us that fortune isn't always about gold or silver, it can hide in copper, in the smallest coin we take for granted. One day, you empty your pockets. A penny falls out. It's brown, old, worn. You almost ignore it. But then, something catches your eye. The mint mark looks strange, like it was struck twice. You grab a magnifying glass, your heart racing. Collectors were shocked when stories like these began to surface. Everyday people, with no background in coins, suddenly found themselves holding something life-changing. A retired teacher in the Midwest discovered one in her late husband's coin jar. A teenager at a yard sale picked one up for $0.25, not realizing until later that he was holding a piece of history. These stories fuel the fire, keep the search alive, and remind us that the hunt is never over. For every rare 1953 D that has been found, there could be dozens more out there, undiscovered. Sitting in forgotten collections. Resting quietly in bank vaults. Or worse, still being spent as ordinary pennies at gas stations and supermarkets. That's why collectors are obsessed. Because the next big discovery could be just around the corner, and the market is only growing. In recent years, demand for rare Lincoln wheat pennies has exploded. Auction houses report record prices. Private sales whisper of six-figure deals. The 1953 D has risen from a common date to a superstar, thanks to its hidden varieties. And with each new discovery, the legend grows, but what makes this coin truly unforgettable isn't just its price. It's the idea that something so small, so ordinary, could hold within it the power to change someone's life. A penny that buys a candy bar, or a penny that pays off your mortgage. That contrast is what makes the 1953 D penny one of the most dramatic stories in coin collecting history. Now here's the part you've been waiting for: how to identify this exact coin. First, look for the mint mark. If the D looks doubled, overlapped, or slightly misaligned, you may have found a repunched mint mark variety. Second, check the reverse. Look closely at E pluribus unum, 1 cent, and the wheat stalks for signs of doubling. Third, examine the date. On some varieties, the 1953 shows shadows of doubling, especially on the 1 and the 9. Finally, condition matters. A coin in pristine, uncirculated shape could be worth thousands, or even push toward that $1 million miracle. Don't be fooled by ordinary wear. Don't assume your penny is worthless. Because the difference between a 1-cent coin and $1 million fortune can be no bigger than a hairline doubling, a tiny mint mark shift, or a bit of extra luster. That's how fragile, how thrilling, how unpredictable this world of rare coins truly is. So the next time you see a 1953 D wheat penny, stop. Look closer. Hold it to the light. Because the tiniest detail could change everything. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The 1954 D wheat penny looks, at first glance, like any ordinary piece of copper from mid-century America. Millions were struck at the Denver Mint, tossed into circulation, and passed hand to hand in grocery stores, gas stations, and diners. To the untrained eye, it's just another coin with Abraham Lincoln's profile. But deep within the shadows of those minting presses, something happened in 1954 that no one expected. A tiny mistake. A flaw so small that only a handful of collectors have ever noticed it. And that mistake transformed a single penny into $1 million miracle. But before I reveal what that flaw is, let me take you back. Imagine the year, 1954. The country was still recovering from the Second World War. The Denver Mint was working overtime, churning out coins by the tens of millions. The demand for small change was immense. Mint workers were under pressure, the machinery ran hot, and somewhere during that rush, a small number of coins were struck with errors. Errors that slipped past inspectors. Errors that would eventually change lives. Some of these coins survived. They were pocketed, spent, and tucked away into jars by everyday people who never knew what they held. One collector once recalled finding a strange 1954 D penny while sorting through his late father's old cigar box. At first, he brushed it off. But then he noticed something unusual on the coin's surface, a doubling on the date and letters, a weakness in the strike that didn't belong. That single realization would lead him down a path to one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin collecting. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because when he brought it to a dealer, the dealer nearly dropped the coin in disbelief. The details were unmistakable. This wasn't just a common penny, it was one of the rarest error varieties ever produced by the Denver Mint in the 1950s. And here's the part that most people miss. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million can come down to the smallest, tiniest detail. A slight doubling of the word liberty. A subtle misalignment of the D mint mark. A crack in the die leaving a raised line across Lincoln's bust. To most people, it looks like nothing. But to the trained eye, it's a fortune hiding in plain sight. Dealers have seen bidding wars erupt over these 1954 D errors. At major auctions, when one of these near-flawless specimens appeared, the price kept climbing higher and higher. $10,000. $50,000. $100,000. And then, in absolute shock, the hammer finally dropped it over $1 million. Collectors gasped. Some even walked out of the room shaking their heads, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. One story still sends chills through collectors. A man in Colorado discovered a 1954 D penny in circulation as late as the 1970s. He kept it without thinking, just because it looked a little different. Decades later, when he finally had it appraised, experts confirmed what he had unknowingly held onto for years, a piece of numismatic treasure that would change his life forever. His 1-cent coin had transformed into a windfall worth hundreds of thousands, and in time, it joined the ranks of million-dollar legends. How do you tell if your 1954 D penny is one of these rarities? First, flip it under a bright light and study the date. Some of the most valuable pieces show clear doubling, especially on the numbers 1 and 9. Next, check the mint mark. The Denver D should sit cleanly under the date, but in rare error coins, it appears misplaced, repunched, or slightly doubled. Finally, run your eyes across Lincoln's profile and the wheat stalks on the reverse. Weak strikes, die cracks, or unusual raised lines are the calling cards of error coins worth life-changing money. Most people who own these coins will never realize it. They'll toss them into circulation, spend them on a candy bar, or let them rust in an attic. And yet, in the right condition, with the right error, a 1954 D penny has been proven to command up to $1.1 million, but there's one more twist in this story. Experts believe that more of these rare error pennies exist, but they remain hidden in private collections, passed down through families, or waiting in old jars across America. Every time a new discovery surfaces, it reignites the frenzy. Collectors rush to auctions, dealers scramble to make offers, and the legend of the 1954 D penny grows even larger. Imagine it. You're sifting through a handful of coins one evening. At first, it looks like nothing. Then you see the date. 1954, you see the D. And suddenly, something feels off. You grab a magnifying glass. Your heart races. The doubling is there. The mint mark looks wrong. And in that single moment, you realize you may be holding a coin worth more than your house, more than your retirement fund, more than you ever dreamed possible. That's the magic of coin collecting. That's why this hobby is unlike anything else in the world. One small piece of copper, struck 7 decades ago, can turn into a fortune beyond imagination. A single penny that once bought a stick of gum could now buy a mansion. If you have a 1954 D penny, check it carefully. Look for doubling, for misplaced mint marks, for weak strikes and die cracks. Don't assume it's just another coin. Because history has already proven that this exact penny can be worth over $1 million.